Thank you guys for the amazing support, and guess what, we have reached incredible 800 subscribers, so now let's begin.
Strange demonic figures are gathered at a place, performing a ritual. Monsters and demons surround a massive glowing crystal, chanting together. Suddenly, something attacks the monsters, slicing them apart. A man appears and swings his sword, sending air blades at the monsters. The man is Lord Ray Chong, leading a charge with a squad of knights behind him. The gravekeeper, Jork Billmeyer, raises his skull staff, leading an army of skeletons. The saintess, Maria Jaeger, among the party, shouts that they need to stop the descent ritual. However, it's too late as the massive crystal shatters, changing the tower's tier from 12 to 12 hard. At one time, the world was overrun by monsters, and everyone thought it would be the end of everything. However, in the midst of that pandemonium, the players arrived to fight back and save humanity. They hunted monsters and protected the people. Following that event, the rules of a new world were announced. The tower is where the monsters spawn and cause havoc on the world. This phenomenon can be prevented if the tower is raided within a specific time frame. Hence, the players, who possess superhuman powers, started raiding the towers and were considered heroes of the world. When the hero king, Yusung, announced that he is doing it all for money, it created controversy all over the news. Yusung had even told people to buy his shirts and posters when they are out. Yusung is currently reading the top comments about him on the PF. PF, the Player Forum, is a player community created due to the world turning into a game. It's a place where information on each raid is shared and where players can trade items. Yusung reviews the comments. Some agree with him, others oppose, and some even ask to join his team. The next morning, Yusung looks out his window, sees a crowd of reporters, and feels irritated. Once he walks out, a reporter asks him his thoughts on his merchandise being boycotted all over the world. The reporters also mention that Yusung had said, "It was over a long time ago," and ask why he is still an active player in the new season. Yusung responds that celebrities who are on TV are drunk and causing problems and asks if they even know how to do anything. He grins and promises to repay the people with good entertainment. The reporters, puzzled by Yusung's statement, ask what he means. Suddenly, the ground begins shaking, causing the reporters to scream. The shaking intensifies as the system announces that Season 6, Endless Labyrinth, commences. The structure of the tower is currently being created, and it's at 96%. Players can enter the applicable tower after reading the information through the gate at the bottom of the tower. A large number of towers descend from the sky, and now it's up to the heroes to raid them and protect the world. Amidst the busy crowd, Yusung pulls down his hood and walks away. The reporters notice some flyers on the ground and wonder if the hero king gave them out and ran away. Yusung arrives at his destination and notices there isn't anyone there. He notes that it's as expected for the first day of the season to be quiet. The majority of the monarchs are pleased as the Iron Monarch and Frost Monarch give Yusung blessings, both laughing. In an annoyed tone, Yusung tells the monarchs to keep laughing as his aptitude for swordsmanship and ice magic increase exponentially. Yusung reveals that his UN Hall comment about just wanting money was a tactic to earn rewards from the monarchs, the transcendents who observe players. Yusung continues receiving more blessings from more monarchs. After a while, he decides to open all rewards in one go. Yusung rolls the gacha and hopes for a legendary item. To his luck, he receives a legendary equipment, the black coat with a gold cross, which greatly increases his defense. Yusung seems pleased as he also gets a heroic grade skill and a heroic grade artifact. He puts on the coat and gets ready to enter the tower. One monarch even blesses Yusung's shirt business. Yusung gets teleported inside the tower. At once, massive orcs holding large weapons approach Yusung and tell him to die. Yusung, looking excited, wants to test his new heroic grade skill. He activates the frost sword and summons a frost weapon. The system informs Yusung that his ice magic compatibility has increased, prompting him to thank the Frost Monarch and raise his weapon. He swings it at the orcs, sending chills of frost at them. The orcs try to cover their faces from the icy blast, but their weapons start freezing and so do their bodies. Within seconds, all the orcs are turned to ice, frozen like statues. Yusung moves forward, grinning. As the orcs begin to die one by one, Yusung levels up and his stats all increase by 1 each. With this, he successfully clears the first floor. He claims he is off to a good start and wonders if he should save the world again. Yusung arrives on the second floor. He looks ahead and notices a large group of orcs celebrating to their fullest. The orcs also see Yusung and are startled. They grab their weapons and shout that Yusung will take them to Valhalla ready to fight and die with honor. Yusung, still holding onto the frost sword, tells the orcs to just wait. He then raises the sword and lunges at them, vowing to show them what heaven looks like. After a while, Yusung clears the second and third floors with ease. As he arrives at the fourth floor, he is happy to have leveled up but looks a bit tired. There he sees that the Warsong guards are blocking the path to their chief's room. Yusung thinks the chief must be an elite mob as he is guarded so well. At that moment, the Steel King blesses the orcs so they can fight with honor and die. The orcs also realize they have been blessed and are motivated. They shout that Valhalla is waiting for them and charge at Yusung. Yusung gets ready with his sword as the orcs near him. He is pissed that the orcs won't let him catch a breath as he raises the sword above his head and sends frost at the orcs. However, Yusung is taken aback seeing an orc jump down at him and attack, which he blocks. He then leaps into the air and slices his sword at the nearby orc. However, his sword does no damage to the orc, and Yusung thinks the orc must have a resistance to cold chi. So he jumps and grabs onto the chandelier by dodging another attack from the orc. He looks down at the orcs all growling at him and thinks he needs to deal a sure-shot fatal blow, but he doesn't have the right skill for that. He remembers obtaining a hero rank artifact, opens his inventory, and finds that the frozen heart increases cold chi damage by 14%. Yusung is not sure if he can even handle using this artifact. From below, the orc bellows at Yusung to come down and fight and flings its weapon towards him. Yusung decides not to hesitate and embeds the artifact. Doing so, he acquires Glacier Synergy. Yusung then jumps down with the effective chi skill cards he's equipped being strengthened. He smirks and notices he is overflowing with magic, causing all his fatigue to disappear. Suddenly, the orc lunges at Yusung, raising its weapon. The orc's weapon strikes Yusung's shoulder, which has been turned to ice, causing the weapon to crack. Yusung quickly attacks back and pierces the orc's shoulder with his sword. With this, the orc falls, its half-frozen body collapsing lifelessly. Yusung levels up as the other orcs close in on him. He blocks one orc's weapon with his sword while grabbing another orc's weapon with his other hand. The orc's weapon begins turning to ice and shatters. Yusung swings his sword and cuts through the two orcs close to him. Another orc lunges at Yusung. Yusung responds quickly and swings his sword at the approaching orc. The orc gets sent backward and crashes on the roof with force. Yusung then summons the dual swords, seeing which the orc looks scared. Yusung begins slicing and dicing through the remaining orcs and levels up along the way. He finishes off the last orc. With this, he is relieved to have finished the floor, not noticing an orc is still alive behind him. But he realizes this in size, noting his estimates were off. He turns around and prepares his final strike. Now with all the orcs dead, Yusung levels up by a lot and the elite floor is cleared. As a reward, Yusung receives a random skill card pack, and also gains 1000 P achievement points as he unlocks the pack. Opening the pack, he is disappointed to receive just a normal skill. However, he decides it's better than nothing and equips it as he receives another blessing from a monarch. With this, he enters another floor where someone welcomes him, noting he isn't dead. Yusung admits it's a shame he didn't die, but the woman says it's not, as being alive means he can sell plenty more items. The woman, who is the shopkeeper, is surprised to see Yusung has collected 1600 P and suggests he use them well before dying. Yusung asks to see the item list while the shopkeeper urges him to buy a card pack, claiming it will contain a legendary, though Yusung remains skeptical. Yusung then purchases 1 speed and 1 fire potion, costing 300 P. As he is about to leave, the shopkeeper urges him to buy a card pack, but he doesn't. Yusung finally arrives at the boss floor. The boss immediately attacks Yusung, who conjures up a shield around him. The boss's attack causes Yusung's shield to shatter. Seeing this orc so strong, Yusung is surprised as he releases the fire potion. The boss's body gets engulfed in fire, causing him to roar in pain. However, the fire does no damage to the boss, and he shouts out for Valhalla. The boss looks for Yusung, not realizing he is right behind him. Yusung pierces a large hole through the boss's chest, taking him by surprise. Yusung smirks, thinking that even a normal rank skill is useful with the blessing. Meanwhile, the boss, now bleeding a lot, bellows out that it's not over until it's over. Yusung, with a smile, admits that the game is never fun if it's too easy. The orc boss growls that it's not over until it's over as he activates the skill, Berserk. Yusung quickly summons an ice shield in front of him, blocking off the shockwave sent by the boss's rage. Yusung is surprised to see just the shockwave do so much damage to his shield and believes he will be done for if he gets hit by it. The boss jumps at Yusung and strikes the shield. The shield shatters, pushing Yusung back slightly, and he starts counting backward from 175 while drinking a speed potion. The boss swings his axe at Yusung, who dodges it. The boss slams the axe down at Yusung, who leaps into the air avoiding it while still counting. Yusung counts down to 3, 2, and finally 1, snapping his fingers and smirking as he declares, "Time's up." Suddenly, the boss falls to the ground on his face and lays dead, and Yusung completes the boss floor. With this, Yusung completes the tower, receives an advanced skill, and attains the special achievement. Grinning, he claims it's rather ominous that things have been going far too well, holding on to the elemental skill card pack. He uses the frost element to open the pack and only receives a common skill, Ice Bolt. Disappointed, he says that's expected of the trash game. The Tower of the Devil-Worshipping Imp is Tier 3, where 1 to a maximum of 16 players are allowed. Yusung is currently there, battling the imps who are charging at him. As the imps close in, Yusung uses the Ice Bolt spell, firing numerous sharp ice bolts piercing the imps. Killing so many imps with a single attack, Yusung says it's fun leveling up skills as the level of Ice Bolt increases. The system informs the Wave 2 will start now. Many more hordes of imps appear, all holding weapons and wanting to go to hell. Yusung gives a sigh and agrees to send those imps to hell as he raises his frost sword. With a single swipe, the whole lot of the imps get frozen. With this, Yusung, the Ice Bolt, and the Frost Blade all level up. Finally, Yusung sees that the tower boss, Imp Heretic, has shown up. The boss says he will honor the Demon King with Yusung's blood. He raises a finger to command his forces to attack Yusung, but before he can do it, Yusung attacks him. The boss is taken aback as it begins to freeze after having the frost status effect applied on it. Within seconds, the boss is engulfed in ice as Yusung walks away, claiming he wants to test something on the boss. Yusung withdraws a card and embeds it, creating star-shaped glowing ice sculptures. He reveals he wants to test how many frost weapons he can summon at his current level as half a dozen weapons materialize around him. Yusung picks one weapon after another and throws them toward the boss. The boss gets struck by all the weapons which pierce its body. Yusung summons more weapons and flings them at the boss as well, which ultimately kills it, and Yusung clears the tower. He uses the equipment ticket he obtained and receives silver plate mail, which he thinks is useless. He also realizes the frost blade doesn't get weaker even if it's split into multiple pieces. At that moment, the system informs Yusung one of the tower's factions has shown a deep interest in his performance. Players can join factions led by elders in the world of towers, completing quests for greater rewards. If Yusung joins the Shadow Council, he will gain mysterious powers and protection as his affinity with the faction increases. The Shadow Council members surround Yusung and ask him if he is interested in joining their whispers. Yusung thinks joining this council won't be bad, but he points out that there are many other factions trying to devour the Shadow Council. A Shadow Council member claims their veil will cover Yusung as well. Yusung says he knows this, prompting the member to ask Yusung what he desires. Yusung gives a smirk and says he wants a Shadow Beast. He also demands a rare Darkness Element skill card along with the beast. The council member warns Yusung not to overestimate his existence, and before he can continue, Yusung cuts him off. Yusung tells the council he hopes they never meet again, noting he's done much for them but they ignore his request. Saying this, he turns to leave, but the man asks him to stop. A Shadow Beast comes walking towards Yusung. The system informs Yusung he has obtained a Shadow Beast as well as 100,000 P achievement points. Yusung leans down and strokes the beast. He also obtains a rare skill card as the council member asks if that will suffice, to which Yusung says it's good. With this, Yusung agrees to join the Shadow Council. After a while, Yusung walks out of the tower and, stretching his arms, looks pleased with how good the season is going. He begins to think if he should continue or take a break in between, but at that moment someone calls him from behind. Yusung turns around and, sighing, realizes he can't take a break. A number of reporters surround Yusung and ask him to share about the towers he conquered and is planning to conquer. Yusung, looking annoyed, claims he is very good at it. A reporter says a Chinese sword master also defeated a Tier 4 tower and points out that this season will be a fierce one. Yusung asks how many people were there. The reporter explains that there were 5 of them led by the sword master, and 4 of them were dead. Yusung claims that the sword master is more like a shield master for using others as shields. The reporter asks if Yusung is implying the sword master sacrificed those people, just as someone announces the sword master has entered the Tier 5 tower. Yusung asks how many people are there this time, and the reporter claims the sword master is all alone. Yusung smirks and says the sword master might be bustling with vigor from day one, but he doesn't want to start a race yet. Because Yusung knows that the saint is collecting skills and items first, and even the Gravekeeper won't be participating in the game yet. Yusung believes the Sword Master might have plans to hoard the items at Tier 4. The reporters ask Yusung what he thinks, and Yusung annoyingly says the Night Master is a nut job. Looking shocked, the reporter asks Yusung if he won't participate in the race with the Sword Master. Yusung mentions he is a nut job too and says he will participate and aim to win. And with this, he asks if anyone can get him to the Tier 5 tower. Sometime later, Yusung arrives at the tower. As his race begins with the Sword Master, multiple elders have started betting, and the Elder of Frost bets on him. When Yusung walks near the tower, the system informs him that one player is already inside. Yusung is certain that one player is the Sword Master and prepares for the race as he enters the tower. The evil Cavalli's empire has started a war and reached the palace fortress in the kingdom of Rhodia, and the outcome of the siege is dependent on Yusung's actions. Yusung has to make a choice whether to support the Cavalli's empire or the Rhodia kingdom. But since the Sword Master has chosen the Cavalli's empire, Yusung is left only with the Rhodia kingdom. Yusung claims even if he was first, he would always choose the Rhodia kingdom, as siding with the losing team yields better rewards. After making the choice, Yusung gets transported to Port Paulus, where the commanders are discussing the battle. Seeing Yusung's arrival, they all become overjoyed and thank the Lord, believing they will be saved now. Yusung wonders if he is in the strategy planning room, and looking around, he is sure the battle is about to occur. He then takes a seat and asks who is in charge there, but no one responds to this, and at that moment, someone walks in calling Yusung insolent. A fat man urges Yusung to uphold the royal laws in front of him, the Lord Muta Dusham, who holds significant titles and authority. Yusung asks the chief if he thinks he will win the battle. The chief confidently says they will surely win with their mental strength. Yusung looks really annoyed with the chief's tone of speaking, so he punches hard in the chief's stomach and sends him crashing down on the floor. After doing this, Yusung stands up and declares he will be the new chief. The others in the room look happy as Yusung announces they will hold a meeting and asks their number of total troops. They seem to have 5,000 conscripted infantry from the serfs, among which only 900 know how to use a bow. Yusung thinks that the empire's vast military power creates a hopeless gap, but at least there are no wizards or magic in this world. And on top of that, the Sword Master is not someone who uses brute force, but is the apostle of the Elder of Steel. Normally, an average player can only make a contract with a single elder, and there's also only one elder who can give out rewards. But in Yusung's case, he can be rewarded by various elders. Conversely, an elder can have multiple players, but there is only the Sword Master who holds the title of Apostle and is favored by the Elder. The Elder does not spare any chance to support the Apostle, but there are some restrictions. Yusung thinks the fight might not be too bad, but he knows the pressure on the soldiers will be different. Also, it's never been clear whether the people inside the tower are really real people or simply virtual beings. Either way, it doesn't matter as Yusung wonders how he can raise the morale of the soldiers. All the soldiers are summoned and informed that Yusung has arrived to save them. The soldiers are informed that the fat chief has been dismissed, and Yusung will now lead them. Hearing this, the soldiers begin to gain hope that the Lord is looking after them. Yusung gives a smile realizing the morale of the soldiers has skyrocketed now. Suddenly, Yusung senses something, and as he turns around, a guard on the wall shouts out that the Empire has launched an attack. The archers on the wall begin to shoot as the enemy soldiers start climbing the walls using their own ladders. A soldier suggests they overcome the offense of the enemy's army and dampen their momentum. Yusung gives a smirk and calls forth the Shadow Beast, ordering it to showcase its skills. Meanwhile, the enemy soldiers down on the ground notice something big and black on the castle wall. The commander tells the soldiers not to lose focus whatever happens but stops when he hears a loud cry. Turning around, he sees the massive form of the Shadow Beast, who has already killed dozens of soldiers. Seeing Blackie, the enemies turn around and, shouting, start to flee. But before they can run far, Yusung freezes them all in an instant. Yusung points out that Blackie seems very hungry and tells him to feast on the enemies. Blackie opens his huge mouth and chomps down on the ice soldiers. And so the great battle begins between the two armies. Yusung himself gets on the battlefield and uses his frost sword to freeze enemies left and right. A while later, Yusung realizes the Sword Master isn't even there. A player showing themselves in battle has both advantages and disadvantages. It boosts the soldiers' morale but also makes the player an easy target. But in the end, the battle between two players isn't about killing each other as there are certain rules in the tower. According to the rule, if one player loses to another, they just get thrown out of the tower as no players can kill the other. However, a tower can kill a player, and Yusung, who is confident he won't die in this tower, doesn't want to lose either. Darky is going on a rampage, and most of the enemies have been frozen up by Yusung. Moments later, the battle is almost over and countless soldiers lay dead. Yusung is wondering why the Sword Master hasn't come out yet. At that moment, the swords begin to rise from the ground. The soldiers notice this and are shocked to see hundreds of swords flying on their own. Yusung realizes the Sword Master is using the Sword Manipulation skill, which is a hero tier skill card. Yusung wonders if the Sword Master got lucky and obtained that skill or if the Elder gave it to him as he leaps to dodge the sword aimed at him. Yusung summons a lot of ice shields to block off the swords. Grinning, Yusung reveals he wasn't just playing around as he looks up at the massive number of swords flying towards him. He then brandishes his sword very fast and destroys all the sword. Grinning more, he claims his leveling work is done. Meanwhile, the enemy soldiers realize the Sword Master has arrived, and it raises their morale. Yusung guesses the Sword Master is targeting him. With their morale raised, the enemy soldiers start fighting back fiercely. Yusung raises the Frost Blade and unleashes a massive frost swirl, freezing all the swords and preventing the Sword Master from manipulating them. He continues producing the frost and freezing up more swords. After a while, Yusung smiles and says attacks like those won't work on him, not aware of an attack coming at him from behind. At the last moment, Yusung turns around and, smirking, produces a massive shield that deflects the Sword Master's attack. The force given off by the shield causes the Sword Master to be pushed backwards. Yusung asks the Sword Master if he really thought of conquering the fortress with his sword manipulation. The Sword Master takes a long breath and asks Yusung what he thinks winning in the tower means. The Sword Master claims that even if the fortress falls and everyone dies, as long as he doesn't defeat Yusung, the Empire cannot win. Yusung asks the Sword Master if he understands why he chose the wrong side and if he wants to try taking him down. The Sword Master points out that a player is a hero, and the duty of a hero is to protect the world. He then states that a bully like Yusung who doesn't understand that is not worthy of becoming the Hero King. Yusung says the Sword Master's speech is good and asks him if he means to say his guild members aren't included in the world he has to protect. The Sword Master becomes silent at this question, and he bellows out that Yusung will not have a graceful death and charges at him. Yusung claims he will be living a little longer as he conjures up the ice shield, but the Sword Master shatters the shield and causes Yusung to bend back to dodge the attack. Yusung responds quickly and shoots an ice bolt. The Sword Master swipes the sword and deflects the attack, not aware of Darky approaching him from behind. At the last moment he senses Darky and leaps up. He uses the swords to hover himself in the air and points out that the elders are watching the fight, so losing would mean a great insult. Yusung laughs and says he is not interested in fighting, gripping the sword tight, and he runs forward. The Sword Master looks angry as he calls Yusung an ignoble thing but stops talking, looking puzzled. Seeing Yusung jump off the wall at the battle below, the Sword Master asks what he is doing. Meanwhile, Yusung is running full speed ahead towards something. The Sword Master finally understands why Yusung was fighting from the beginning and even showing his presence. The enemy soldiers see Yusung heading towards them and run away, shouting for help. The Sword Master curses as he runs behind Yusung. He shouts at Yusung to stop, but Yusung, merely smirking, continues running on his way. In the Imperial Army Command Barracks, an uproar is going on, with everyone panicking. A commander shouts in anger, demanding to know what the visitor on their side is doing. At that moment, Yusung arrives, claiming he found the place. Holding the blade, Yusung says the way to win the game isn't just one. The commanders realize Yusung is a player and wonder if the gods have forsaken them as Yusung lunges at them. They want to protect the Duke as Yusung swings his sword and slices them all. Blood spills everywhere as all the commanders are cut down in half. The Sword Master also arrives, looking angered at Yusung. Yusung turns his head and, smiling, tells the Sword Master he should have taken off the officer's clothes and hidden it among the soldiers. The Sword Master looks hurt, and Yusung points out that he should have been aware of another way to stop the Empire's advance. The Sword Master curses Yusung and advances, but as he nears, the system informs Yusung that he has cleared the siege of Palace. With this, the Sword Master's weapon begins to disintegrate. The system also informs Yusung he has succeeded in raiding the Tower of War, and Yusung is now able to take one skill card that the Sword Master has as a reward. Yusung smiles and says it's nice of the Sword Master to give him all these cards, while the Sword Master curses in anger. Yusung decides to choose sword manipulation and obtains that skill. He also obtains the steel energy. Looking enraged, the Sword Master bellows at Yusung not to think it's the end. Meanwhile, Yusung just smirks, flexing the skill card he took from the Sword Master. Long ago during Season 2, Yusung had faced a situation when he was asked if he wanted to be a hero. Yusung had always dreamt of becoming one, and a clown figure had said Yusung would be the hero of heroes. But there was a catch. Yusung would never be understood by anyone and he would be a laughingstock among all. Yusung had accepted these terms and put on the clown mask, and this way the Elder of Jester made an agreement with Yusung. Currently in his bed, Yusung wakes up. Someone is calling his phone, and he already has 4 missed calls. At that moment, someone bangs on the door, telling Yusung to open it. Yusung rubs his eyes, gets up, opens the door, and sees the general manager at the door. Park Tae-shik, mainly known as Master Park, grins back at Yusung. Master Park is a player in the top 30 ranks who made an agreement with the Elder of Assassins. Also his player nickname is Deathblade. At the same time, he is also the general manager of the National Intelligence Agency. Yusung points out that Park looks tired and asks if he had to run around quite a bit on the first day as well. Park explains that from the season's first day, warmongers worldwide are deploying players to the front lines, uniting to create a sonata of destruction. Entering the room, Park asks Yusung why he didn't pick up the phone, and Yusung claims he was asleep. Park stumbles on the plates and bowls on the floor and falls down, shouting at Yusung to re-evaluate his way of living. As Yusung picks up the mess from the floor, Park tells him he is living like a child of darkness. Park also asks Yusung why he is eating from the local restaurant despite earning so much, to which Yusung says he likes the food there. Park falls on the bed on his back and requests Yusung to order that food for him if it's that delicious. Yusung's story with Park goes way back to the time before the world became a game. When Yusung was 15 years old, he would play a lot of computer games in a gaming cafe. He was so good that he always beat the most difficult games, earning praise from others. Park, who was a PC room manager back then, noticed Yusung was really good at every game and considered him a game genius. One day, Park suggested Yusung debut as a pro, hearing which Yusung was surprised as he only played games for fun then. But Park managed to convince Yusung's parents and even volunteered to look after Yusung and help him with his talents. Yusung then waited till he was 18 to make an official pro debut. But at that moment, the first season, a tower break, happened and monsters appeared, destroying everything. Yusung managed to survive for a while, but he was heavily bruised. While he was cornered, a massive beast attacked him. But Park came out of nowhere and saved Yusung by defeating the beast. However, Yusung's mom and dad were both killed in the pursuit. Grief-stricken, Yusung cried a lot, and Park was there to console him and become his hero. Currently, both Yusung and Park are eating noodles as Yusung asks Park why he is there. Park replies that he is there because of the association. Hearing about the association, Yusung asks if they still want to use him. KPA, the country's player association, is an all-powerful organization that manages players. Park reminds Yusung of the player academy the association built last season, which Yusung calls the Slave Factory. Park explains that the association is going to hold its first graduation exam in a week and they want Yusung to attend. Park assumes Yusung won't attend and offers to refuse it on his behalf, but Yusung says he will attend. Park is surprised to hear this. Yusung suggests that attending the exam could help him look at the new players, while Park inquires if he has any conditions. Yusung says he wants the association to change the date of the exam to tomorrow at 5 a.m. At 4:55 a.m. the next day at the Player Academy graduation exam, the candidates are currently warming up. Some are discussing Yusung, the Hero King, judging them in their exams. Meanwhile, Yusung is standing outside the office door. A man walks out, asking Yusung what he thinks of the academy students, and Yusung thinks the students were carried from the start. The man, Lee Seongo, the KPA president, requests Yusung to judge his academy's first generation of students. Yusung points out the conditions will be those he's already stated. He summons the Frost Blade and claims he will test the strengths of those kids and decide their final graduation. He walks towards the students to begin the graduation exam. Once Yusung is gone, Seongo grins and says his plan is perfect and is certain even the Hero King won't be able to do as he wishes. But a while later, Seongo is bewildered as he sees Yusung failing one student after another. At last, a girl is left who thinks she failed, but Yusung confirms she passed. Surprised, she asks how she passed, and Yusung tells her she was lucky. Yusung points out that the girl was the last one standing among the 12 others, so she is the luckiest one. Yusung then declares the end of the exam and tells the people to turn off the camera. At that moment, Seongo, accompanied by other teachers, rushes into the hall, shouting and asking Yusung what he is doing. Yusung claims that he realized what Seongo was trying to do, and he explains that the students are either family of the association's executives or have connections, and he's certain he was called to test their progress and gather data. Yusung reveals that the association wants him to take those students who are weak and give them spots they don't deserve. Yusung says that's how things go in the association and calls it rotten. Seongo gets angry and insults Yusung. He threatens to teach Yusung a lesson and claims a player is just a weapon of the nation. Seongo clenches his fist and says what they need in the changed world is a war hero. Saying this, he asks Yusung to understand the situation and cooperate with them. Yusung realizes that all Seongo wants from players is war. Seongo begins to speak, but a man stops him, informing him of an urgent issue. Seongo looks at the issue and is instantly shocked. Yusung gives a smile and points out that the Player Academy is going to close just after a year. The issue seems to be a video posted online about nepotism in the Player Academy. The statement, "players are just war weapons," Seongo said earlier, has spread over the internet. Seeing all this, Seongo is shaken and speechless. Yusung asks Seongo if he has heard of the term Dark Knight, as Yusung's provocation stats increase by a lot. The Clown Monarch gets excited by Yusung's actions and donates him a gift box. A while later, Yusung walks out of the Player Association building. Yusung turns sideways and thanks Park, making it obvious that Park, who works for the National Intelligence Organization, helped expose the Player Academy. Park claims that the government and the Player Academy associations always argue. Yusung then asks Park to give him a lift to the 5th-tier tower. Park drops Yusung off at the 5th-tier tower, the Pale Desert Tower. From there, Yusung is transported to the Desert Oasis camp. There, a group of desert people are currently under attack by panther-like monsters. When players enter a tower's realm, things begin to stir up and chaos breaks loose. Players then act like saviors, and always appear at the perfect times and protect the weak ones. This makes the players help seem more legendary. Yusung easily defeats all the monsters and says he is there for the people. The people are all surprised to see Yusung there. Yusung gives them permission to call him whatever they want. The people get excited and claim the Lord has shown them mercy. Yusung asks them if there is any other threat apart from the monsters. A man explains that it's Divine Kingdom territory, so they don't worry about heathen invasions, and says his group is 3 days from their destination. Yusung is not happy to hear it will take 3 days and thinks he should have just rested before coming, but still he assures the people to go to sleep without worrying about monsters as long as he is there. Yusung assures the people not to worry, offering to stand guard, and they thank him for his compassion. Yusung hopes the Vitality Necklace will help him increase his recovery rate. The system informs him he can unlock the gift box, so he takes it out and starts unwrapping it. From the box, he acquires a superior rank growth stone and seems happy with it. He decides to keep it for later. At that moment, large scorpions come rushing towards the caravan. Yusung summons Darky and tells him it's time to eat. Darky starts attacking the scorpions. Yusung, meanwhile, creates many frost swords. He then uses sword manipulation and sends them flying towards the scorpions. He realizes that the swords are moving as per his thoughts and finds the skill quite useful. Yusung starts leveling up as he kills more and more scorpions. His sword manipulation skill card also levels up, and after a while, he wonders if it's over. But he feels the ground shaking and suddenly something emerges from the sand. It's a sand predator, massive in size and terrifying. Yusung gives a smirk as he says he is done sleeping for the night. He then calls for Darky, who meows in response. Darky lunges at the sand predator and bites its middle part. Yusung also sends the blades towards the predator. The many blades pierce through the predator's skin as Yusung increases the power in the spell. Suddenly, a powerful swirl of frost surrounds the predator's body. Within seconds, the predator freezes to death, causing Yusung, the frost sword creation, and sword manipulation skills all to level up. The next day, the caravan of people gets on its way. There are knights there as well. Yusung, who is walking at the front, is surprised to see the knights there. A man claims that the knights are warriors who serve the god of light, as Yusung asks where they were last night. The man says that those knights were busy protecting the goods. Yusung asks what faction the knights belong to, and the man says they belong to the Blood Cross Knights Order. A serious-faced knight is approached by Yusung, who asks if they have a golden calf hidden in the carriage. The knight suggests Yusung ignore the carriage and focus on his god-given work. Grinning, Yusung reveals that the knights use the aura of heart and even summon him, making it quite a troublesome task. Yusung walks over to the knight and says he is getting more curious about the carriage. He also wonders what kind of goods could require such a level of protection. The man looks worried, but Yusung suddenly pulls him by the collar and conjures a shield to block an arrow. Yusung then shouts at everyone to duck if they don't want to die as hundreds of arrows come raining down on the caravan. The arrows pierce through the people as more enemies on horses come charging. The attackers are the heretics who have dared to enter the territory of the Holy Kingdom. The heretics, after firing enough arrows, turn back and gallop away on their horses. Yusung realizes they are doing hit and run and wonders how the knights will fight back. Some of the knights activate the aura shield to block the arrows as the commander instructs them to protect the goods. Meanwhile, the other people are dying from the arrows, and Yusung thinks the knights don't care about them. Yusung then charges forward as he receives the raid goal to guard the caravan and safely transport the items. He turns sideways and sees an archer aiming at him from a horse. Yusung raises his sword and throws it like a javelin at the enemy, but it lands a few feet away. Suddenly, a sharp object emerges from the ground and knocks the horse off its feet, causing the archer to fall off. Taking advantage of the situation, Yusung leaps into the air and takes out his dagger. He aims straight at the archer who just fell. However, he is shocked when he sees the archer is a desert elf. Yusung looks sideways and quickly summons shields to block off the arrows sent at him. However, one arrow pierces through the shield as the desert elf raises his dagger to charge at Yusung. Yusung uses his sword to deflect the elf's attack while Darky jumps in and grabs the arrow in his mouth. Yusung puts his sword around the elf's neck and demands to know what's inside the carriage. The elf tells his comrades not to worry about him and to shoot at Yusung. Following his orders, the other elves shoot. Yusung quickly summons many shields in front and deflects all the arrows. The elf declares that Yusung won't get his hands on anything no matter what. Yusung assures the elf not to worry about that and asks what's in the carriage so he knows which side to join. He makes it clear that it's not difficult for him to wipe out all the elves if he wants as he shoots ice bolts. The ice bolts fly towards the other elves, halting right before their faces and necks. Once again, Yusung asks the elf what goods are inside the carriage. The elf gets angry at Yusung for calling the princess goods. Yusung then realizes the knights kidnapped the princess of the heretic and decides to let the elves retreat. The elf disagrees, but Yusung explains that it's better to get another chance and retreat instead of dying there. The elf silently agrees and gallops away with the rest of the elves. elves. At that moment, one of the knights comes running at Yusung. He asks Yusung why he let the heretics escape, and Yusung claims he wants to confirm something first. Saying this, Yusung walks towards the carriage, but the knight on the horse stops him. The knight says he won't let Yusung get to the carriage, prompting Yusung to warn the knight to step aside. With this, Yusung grabs onto the door of the carriage and pulls it open. Then he asks the princess inside if she wants him to save her. The princess, Syria, who is chained up, bellows out that she doesn't hope for the sympathy of a heretic. The monarch of light warns Yusung to remember his duty and warns against his actions. Yusung withdraws his dagger and cuts the chains binding Syria. With this, Yusung accomplishes the hidden quest, rescue the princess. He also acquires 300,000 P achievement points. The tower's raid goal gets updated and it levels up from tier 5 to tier 5 hard. Yusung laughs that the game is now ruined, but he is happy with the freedom. The system warns Yusung that he will pay for defying the light and informs him one of the tower's forces has turned against him. From the sky, angels descend who serve the monarch of light and execute his will. The knight commander gives the command to kill Yusung for defying the light. Yusung calls out the knights for switching their attitude because they got support and smirks that he has some support as well. Suddenly, dark shadows begin surrounding Yusung as the Shadow Monarch supports his decision. The Shadow Council provides Yusung with a buff, Curtain of Darkness. Out of nowhere, darkness surrounds everything, and the knights are unable to see anything. Yusung claims he knew this side would have a greater reward. He starts killing the knights who are still blinded by the darkness. Meanwhile, the angels fly over the darkness and begin summoning the light. This causes the darkness to be wiped away, making everything visible. However, Yusung creates dust to swirl around like a tornado, causing the angels to curse. Suddenly, Yusung leaps up and cuts an angel in half with the frost blade. The other angels are all bewildered and taken aback seeing this. They are unable to believe a mere mortal like Yusung could kill an angel. Yusung then makes a backflip and lands on the ground, as the Angels of Light faction develops hostility against him. Meanwhile, Yusung's amiability with the Shadow Council faction improves rapidly. The darkness aptitude begins increasing as Yusung claims he can finally see. All of this causes an immeasurable number of factions in the tower to watch Yusung's every move now. The world of towers and the world inside the towers are not the same. The Blood-Cross Knights and the Desert Elves are the creatures inside the tower and make up the world inside the tower. However, the monarchs and their forces belong to the level above, which is the world of the tower itself. The players are the agents between these two worlds and are like the notion of forces that serve a certain monarch meddling inside the tower. But the players aren't mere puppets who carry out the wills of the monarchs. Sometimes the players can analyze the things going inside the tower and make their own decisions that might defy the rules or flow of the game. Yusung had predicted he'd be rewarded after opposing the forces of light as he is a member of the Shadow Council. He has already killed the majority of the angels and only 5 are left. Also, it's well known that even the monarchs themselves cannot defy the rules and restrictions of the tower. No matter how much the Watchers of Light try, as long as the tower is recognized as Tier 5, no angel over rank 8 can descend there, as per the rule. The angels, full of wrath, shoot their weapons down at Yusung but instead kill the knights. One knight, as he gets struck by a weapon, asks why they are being killed. Yusung knows that the angels don't care about their followers. He realizes his vision clears momentarily and accepts the buff's powers are good but they get deactivated at the battle's end. As another attack comes hurling down, Yusung gets out of its way. He acknowledges the enemy is strong, so he decides to act quickly. Princess Syria has a scared look on her face as Yusung goes near her, startling her. Yusung then carries Syria out of harm's way. He calls Darky and gives him a crystal-looking thing to eat, instructing him to protect the princess. The crystal is a superior rank growth stone, which Yusung crushes into powder. He then sprinkles the powder upon Darky's body. Princess Syria notices the angels have launched an attack and shouts loudly to get Yusung's attention. Darky begins growing in size as the angels attacks near them. Syria closes her eyes and looks away in fear. Darky, who is gigantic now, gives a loud roar and deflects the attacks. The attacks do no damage when they strike Darky. Yusung gives a smile and summons a shadow blade. One of the angels tells Yusung that his sword will be of no use against them. Meanwhile, Yusung uses the spikes as stepping stones and runs towards the angels, with a few swords hovering around him. The angel also withdraws the Sword of Radiance and swings it at Yusung, who blocks it with his own sword. A fierce sword battle between Yusung and the angel starts. The angels keep attacking Yusung while he blocks and dodges. Yusung feels he keeps losing his footing when fighting the angels in close quarters. He looks in trouble, finding it difficult to keep moving while fighting. Suddenly, Yusung gets caught off guard and receives a cut on his shoulder. As another attack comes his way, Yusung dodges it. He is surprised to see the angels so fast even with the debuff. He summons more shields and blocks off the angels' attacks while retreating. The angels fight fiercely while Yusung keeps blocking their attacks, and he receives another cut. Yusung is annoyed at the angels flying around and attacking one by one, and he wants to deal with them all at once. So he decides to use his trump card. But before he can, the angels attack him and he groans in pain. At that moment, a light blade pierces Yusung in his heart and he curses, bleeding from his mouth. The angel who pierced him is still holding onto her spear. The remaining angels charge together at Yusung to finish him off while he is immobilized by the spear. With Yusung immobilized by the weapon, all the angels charge towards him to finish him off. At that moment, Yusung begins receiving many blessings, causing the attack he received to have no effect on him. The sword piercing him begins to disintegrate. The angel behind is shocked as she shouts out and alerts others to stop, noting something is strange. But Yusung, who has now summoned a dozen swords around him, says it's too late. He raises his arm and causes the swords to fly towards the angels. Yusung notes that he will end things now. As the swords strike the angels, they begin falling down like flies. Yusung sees one angel attempting to flee. He quickly jumps down and flings his sword towards the angel, killing her midair. After this, Yusung begins to level up significantly, and his buffs also disappear. The dead angels lay on the ground with Yusung standing near them. He gives a sigh and looks around. There are dead knights all around. Darky places his paw on Yusung's shoe, and Yusung sits down, noting Darky has gotten smaller. The princess, Syria, calls out to Yusung. She asks Yusung why he betrayed his people to save her. Yusung points out that he did it for the rewards. Syria asks Yusung if he will really demand a ransom from her people after saving her. Yusung claims that he has a severe illness of hating humans, and seeing the puzzled look on Syria's face, apologizes for being blunt. Yusung continues stroking Darky and mutters, "Good, good." A few days later, Yusung and the princess have arrived at the Elf Kingdom Ayeb's border. The princess thanks Yusung for all he did for her. Yusung says he has a reward to receive. The princess gives Yusung a locket, which is the sign of trust, an unknown rank accessory, and with this, Yusung successfully clears the tower in hard mode. Yusung is surprised to receive this reward. By saving the kidnapped princess, Yusung paved the way for her induction as queen after the king's death. Yusung is currently on a train to Busan. 4 hours ago, Park had instructed Yusung to go to Busan. Yusung asked if anything was wrong, but Park had said not yet. When Yusung questioned why he needed to go to Busan, Park claimed something was going to happen there soon. Natasha Ivanova is an internationally renowned notorious criminal player, known as one of the black players. Chased by the Russian government, she smuggled herself through Busan port and began farming the towers with 4 subordinates. She possesses the legendary skill card, Curtain of Absolute Darkness. At present, once Yusung arrives at the station, he asks Park through the phone to send him a car. Park says that he has obtained info on the Tier 5 tower that Ivanova's gang entered and tells Yusung to go there. After a while, Yusung reaches the tower, which is Zombie Apocalypse Tower, and the raid goal is to survive until the fixed date. Yusung enters the tower and learns that a company had unleashed a deadly virus from their lab, causing the apocalypse. As Yusung looks around, he gives a disgusted look seeing something. In front of him is an ugly-looking zombie with numerous eyes, and Yusung has to survive from such monsters. He raises his sword to attack, wondering why these monsters are called zombies. But he stops as he sees Darky has launched at the zombie first. Darky drools as he sends dark shadowy things at the zombie. Suddenly, something begins forming on the ground beneath the zombies, and a massive whale emerges, swallowing the zombie whole. With this, the whale dissolves back into the dark thing like before. Yusung gives an impressed look and points out that Darky has changed a lot after eating the growth stone. Darky meows, his eyes sparkling. At that moment, Ivanova arrives there along with her team, clapping and saying she knew Yusung would enter. Ivanova extends her arms and addresses Yusung as the hero of heroes. She asks Yusung if he couldn't leave a villain like her alone. Yusung addresses Ivanova and begins explaining her identity and her history. Ivanova giggles and asks Yusung if he will arrest her, which Yusung denies. Yusung then summons a few frost blades around him and warns Ivanova not to act so relaxed in front of him. Yusung wonders if the appraisal of him by the Russian Foreign Intelligence Service must be rather unfavorable. Yusung charges at Ivanova, asking if she and her gang intend to corner him and let the zombies feast on him. Ivanova summons her sword and asks Yusung why he came after her, knowing she's part of Russian intelligence. Yusung declares he's not there to be zombie food, shoots frost blades at Ivanova, and says he plans to steal her legendary skill. Ivanova does a backflip, dodging the blades, and orders her team to attack Yusung. Yusung leaps backward as Ivanova's team starts firing their guns at him. Yusung moves like lightning, dodging the bullets easily. He then lunges at Ivanova, his sword raised. Ivanova turns around and, grinning, points her middle finger at Yusung. At first, Yusung is puzzled as his sword pierces the ground. He then realizes Ivanova has disappeared into thin air. Yusung suddenly senses an attack and quickly summons a shield at his side, blocking the bullets, and notices there is a sniper too. As more bullets come at him, he leaps back and dodges them, and swings his sword to deflect more bullets. The next moment, Yusung surrounds himself with ice shields, blocking the shots from all sides. He gives a smile as Darky jumps down on his shoulder. He turns his head and tells Darky he needs help. Darky meows in understanding. Meanwhile, the shooter complains that Yusung's ice shields are too hard to pierce as he hears a meow and turns around to see Darky. Suddenly, massive spikes pierce that man's body. Another man gives a yell as more spikes appear around him, and the other man shouts out that they have to leave Darky's shadows. Yusung is surprised to see the man can see Darky's shadow. At that moment, someone's hand places a blade at Yusung's throat from behind. Ivanova, who is wielding 2 blades, warns Yusung to behave and she might let him leave. Yusung declares that only those who can kill him can give such threats. Ivanova notes out that the points Yusung got after clearing the tier 5 the other day were not in any ordinary number, and she asks Yusung if he cleared that tower in hard mode. Yusung suggests Ivanova go and take care of Darky first, who is killing her people. Smirking, he grabs onto Ivanova's hand, pointing the knife at him and pierces his own throat with it, telling Ivanova she can't kill him. It turns out that Yusung's body is fake as the blade just passes through his neck like it's a hologram. Seeing this, Ivanova is shocked as 3 frost blades appear out of nowhere, all hovering around her neck. Yusung appears in front of Ivanova and claims he figured it wasn't the curtain of absolute darkness from the start. He then points out that Ivanova just interfered with his senses, and it left him with a single conclusion. Yusung reveals that Ivanova was using a legendary ranked illusion skill that allows her to manipulate the target's visual information, and he names the skill Oculus. Ivanova becomes silent and sits down on her knees. Yusung says Ivanova has to be a good scammer, but it doesn't seem like her forte, and he declares that Ivanova will now be the feast for zombies. Saying this, Yusung raises his hand at Ivanova as suddenly a message saying some player has died appears. As the frost blades close in, Ivanova is still in shock and an announcement reads, Ivanova's classified forces have detected the presence of survivors. A massive flying vessel enters the scene, from which a massive voice echoes that multiple survivors are detected. From the flying ship, 3 figures drop onto the building, all chanting eliminate. Ivanova's henchmen turn around and try to flee, but a large cyborg jumps down in front of the man. The cyborg is there to enforce classified protocols. Followed by a small explosion, another message appears that a player has died. Yusung, looking concerned, wonders if he can stop the cyborg. The cyborg fires a massive laser at Yusung, who blocks it with an ice shield while covering his face from the intense blow. At that moment, a phenomenon occurs where a huge clock and its many gears become visible, causing Ivanova to be puzzled. A girl appears in front of Yusung and Ivanova, who says 2 people died without using their achievement points, and that girl, who is the shopkeeper, blames Yusung and Ivanova for that. The shopkeeper says 2 people died with unspent achievement points and blames Ivanova and Yusung. Yusung gives a grin and apologizes for that. The shopkeeper tells Yusung to buy a card from her, and she will forgive him. Yusung suggests the shopkeeper try to sell the cards to Ivanova. The shopkeeper reminds Ivanova to use her second highest points before dying, causing her to close her eyes in annoyance. The shopkeeper again reminds Ivanova she will die anyway and suggests buying a card quickly, hoping it might be mythological and save her. Yusung asks the shopkeeper if selling cards is the only thing she cares about. Ivanova agrees to use all of her 374,000 points on random skill card packs. Yusung is sitting down staring at something. Meanwhile, Ivanova is busy buying the cards. She begins to get angry as she only receives 1 rare and all normal cards. The shopkeeper assures Ivanova she will definitely get a mythological card and tells her not to give up. But Ivanova keeps receiving normal cards, getting more and more anxious while Yusung is having fun witnessing this. After a series of normal cards, Ivanova is now down to her last 7 cards. Concerned, Ivanova is wishing to get just 1 mythological card, and even a legendary or at least a hero one. However, to her bad luck, she gets all normal cards and punches the ground in frustration. The shopkeeper asks Ivanova if she wants to buy a potion with her 4,000 points left. The shopkeeper then asks Yusung to buy a card, prompting him to ask why he should. The shopkeeper explains that due to the previous deaths and misfortunes Yusung and Ivanova have faced, the next card will surely be legendary. The system informs that the Hell Monarch is shocked, and Yusung decides to try buying the card. Ivanova bellows out in anger and curses Yusung as well as the shopkeeper. Yusung tells Ivanova cursing won't help as he uses 1,000 points and buys a card. But he receives the normal skill card, Ice Bolt, which he already has, and is given the option to upgrade it to 2 stars. Yusung then turns to Ivanova and sees a weird, angry look on her face, muttering something. Yusung asks the shopkeeper to translate what Ivanova is saying, but the shopkeeper turns away and leaves. Suddenly, a massive explosion shakes the ground behind Yusung and Ivanova. The 3 cyborgs appear, all holding massive guns. Yusung calls Ivanova, and as she turns towards him, he chops off her head without warning. As blood splatters everywhere, Yusung charges towards the cyborgs. With his eyes focused, he takes a great leap and cuts off one cyborg's head with his sword. The other two cyborgs fly high above and point their guns at Yusung. Yusung summons frost blades and shoots them forward to counter the attacks launched at him. The cyborgs merge their weapons and shoot a massive laser beam at Yusung, who quickly steps aside to dodge it. Yusung is surprised to see such power from the cyborgs. The laser has left a long, deep gash on the ground. Yusung uses the skill and produces countless ice bolts around him. Grinning, he sends the bolts at both the cyborgs and the flying ship. With this, the cyborgs get badly damaged and explode into smithereens, and the zombie apocalypse tower is cleared. Yusung is victorious, and he has the choice to take any one skill card that Ivanova possesses. Yusung, who had already made up his mind, selects the skill Oculus. When the tower is cleared, the players all return back to their own world, and those who fail return as well. Yusung realizes two of Ivanova's people have died at Darky's hands and thinks they must still be in a lot of pain, so they couldn't make it out. As Yusung walks away, he tells Ivanova she did good work. Ivanova is surprised as Yusung lets her go, saying he isn't interested in arresting her and suggesting she surrender at the nearest police station if she wants. Ivanova asks Yusung if he will really just let her run away, which Yusung affirms and claims he is considerate. Smirking, Yusung says the dead don't speak, and he needs to have someone who does. Once out of the tower, Park asks why Yusung spared Ivanova and her team, and Yusung replies it was for the legendary skill. Park then scolds and shouts at Yusung through the phone for his actions. Yusung says that he is not a killer and tried to be peaceful and philanthropic. Park, looking annoyed, curses Yusung and asks what Ivanova and her team wanted. As Park continues scolding Yusung, Yusung tells him to be cool, reminding him he's been running his PC cafe. Park sighs and tells Yusung to be careful on his way back and not to make him worry too much. Yusung promises to be careful and thanks Park for worrying about him. Inside the world of Tower, players are called by many names like Player, Visitor, and Apostle. Likewise, in the real world, players have many names such as Weapon, Military Power, Living Unbalanced Tactics, and Hero. Moreover, players aren't heroes but simply heroes of war. People like Ivanova are those who'd eliminate enemies without the slightest hesitation. Yusung is beginning to think others wish him to be such a hero as well. Yusung, walking along the road, removes his hood, and two people point at him, recognizing him. He quickly puts the hood back on, realizing he got careless. Those two begin arguing whether Yusung is a bad guy or a good one. Despite their arguing, they acknowledge that Yusung is the reason why the world hasn't ended yet. Yusung gives a sigh upon hearing this conversation. A while later, a news reporter comes running at Yusung, his camera pointed at him. Yusung realizes he's been caught and quickly leaps away. He enters the Tier 5 Sword and Magic Tower. The people around cheer seeing Yusung enter and claim the Saintess's ceremony is a success. Yusung is surprised hearing the word Saintess when, at that moment, someone greets him. That person is Ilicia Celestina, the 37th saint of the Holy Celestina Kingdom. Yusung gives a smile and shakes Ilicia's arm, claiming he is a warrior who saves worlds. He asks Ilicia what he can do for her, prompting her to say she will explain everything from the start. Yusung guesses the beginning must involve a fight between heavenly beings and demons. Ilicia points out that Yusung is correct and goes into a long explanation of what problem her kingdom is facing. 30 minutes later, Yusung looks bored with the story and says they should just get on with saving the world from the demons. But Ilicia presses on that her story is just beginning and continues narrating the story. Yusung now loses patience and walks away while Ilicia asks where he is going. Yusung responds he will go to work as Ilicia runs after him, reminding him he doesn't even know where the arch is. Yusung asks Ilicia if she knows where the arch is, and she says she doesn't. Ilicia tries to argue, but at that very moment, a portal appears, through which two massive hands emerge. Ilicia gasps in shock as she sees that a demon has entered the Holy Land. A knight bellows at everyone to get back and raises his sword while the magicians raise their hands to cast spells. Laser-like attacks and swords strike the demon simultaneously, but everyone is shocked when the divine blades don't do any damage to the demon. The demon smiles and begins charging up an attack. Seeing this, Yusung summons lots of shields to protect the people there, telling them to stay back. Ilicia tries to step forward to help Yusung, but a knight holds her back. Yusung tells Ilicia to stay back as she shouts at him to be careful as an attack strikes Yusung. Ilicia is touched seeing Yusung step into danger for their sake. She gets on her knees and begins praying to the goddess for mercy. Following her, the other people also get down and begin praying. The prayers work as the shield shatters and Yusung gets freed. Yusung, clutching his face, claims the demon sent him a telepathic message and speaks in a demonic voice, saying the demons will seize the arch and spread darkness over the world. The demon also warns Yusung not to get in their way, Hearing this, Alicia is sweating with fear. Yusung says that they can't delay anymore and asks Alicia if she has any idea where the arch might be. Alicia claims she has a good guess. Moments later, Yusung and Alicia get on their way, both riding on horses. Darky is sleeping against Yusung's lap as Yusung praises Darky for his great voice acting earlier. Darky meows happily. Yusung then reveals he had used Darky's voice earlier to scare Alicia and others. Alicia asks Yusung if they should slow down, but Yusung says he is fine. Yusung grins and says it's better doing things his way. Yusung and Alicia arrive at the Adventurers Guild, where they are welcomed. Yusung asks what's needed to enter the labyrinth, and the front desk woman says an adventurer's license, and she hands Yusung a ticket and tells him to wait. The Adventurers Guild is full of adventurers. Alicia explains that the city, Labyrinth City, lies amidst the territory of the Holy Celestina Kingdom and the Draga Empire. Yusung thinks this city would be perfect to hide the arch, which is an ancient weapon. At that moment, Yusung's ticket number is called. They are given papers to sign, and Alicia tries to sign them immediately, but Yusung stops her. Yusung reads that the paper states if anyone dies in the labyrinth, their bodies will belong to the city. The woman explains that everyone gets a fair shot and that inside the labyrinth, everything is risky. She also makes it clear that signing the papers is the adventurer's choice alone. So Yusung and Alicia both sign the papers and hand them to the woman, who wishes them the best of luck. After a while, both of them enter the ancient labyrinth, which is currently at level 1. Yusung asks Alicia if she is ready and she affirms. At once, massive mice with sharp claws and teeth lunge at them. Yusung uses the frost blade to defend himself as Alicia shoots an energy beam, slicing the mice in two. Moments later, they reach level 5. Yusung praises Alicia's fighting skills and her blessing magic, hearing which she becomes pleased. Alicia mentions the adventurers who apprehended the magic beasts from their way earlier and expresses gratitude to them. But Yusung knows that those adventurers were merely claiming their hunting ground, not helping. Alicia smiles and says if adventurers help each other, then fighting the demons won't be frightening. Yusung assures Alicia not to worry much and promises to get her the ancient weapon, but at that moment, they walk into some people. Yusung asks if those people are the labyrinth bandits. Alicia is shocked to hear there are bandits in the labyrinth. Yusung explains that such bandits are always present in every decent-sized labyrinth. The bandit leader extends his hand and suggests Yusung and Alicia hand over everything they've got. Alicia steps forward and suggests the bandits talk it out. Smirking, Yusung offers to narrate his story to the bandits. He begins explaining about celestial beings and demons and reveals that he is from another world. But none of the bandits understand what Yusung is talking about and look puzzled. Yusung finally says that he and Alicia are looking for the ancient weapon arch. He then asks the bandits to let them pass. For a moment, the bandits remain silent. Then the bandits begin laughing and think Yusung has gone mad for yapping such nonsense. Alicia is taken aback, seeing the bandits not cooperative. Yusung clenches his teeth and mutters that he knew it. He charges at the bandits and begins cutting through them while they aren't even aware of what is happening. The bandits then begin screaming in pain as they notice their arms cut off. Yusung also hacks the bandit leader's arm off. Suddenly, an axe comes hurling at Yusung from behind, which he notices and deflects it away. A woman walks in, asking Yusung how dare he take down her man. The woman notes that Yusung is more skilled than he looks, while Alicia recognizes that the woman is the same worker at the Adventurers Guild. Yusung points out that the guild and the bandits are in cahoots. Working together, they drive new adventurers into danger and make them calculate their lives' worth in terms of money. Not just that, even if the adventurers can't pay up, the bandits will take their dead bodies and make money out of it. Hearing this, Alicia is bewildered as she can't understand how any humans can do this. Seeing Alicia's reaction, the woman calls her naive and claims violence is the way of the Labyrinth City. She raises her axe and lunges at Alicia. Yusung blocks the axe with his own sword and grinning, tells the woman to watch her step. The woman turns around and receives a shock, seeing Darky's true scary form. Meanwhile, Darky meows cutely. Yusung informs Alicia the path is clear and suggests they continue forward. So the two of them get on their way. They arrive at a massive chamber. Yusung suggests they spend the night there and start the journey the next morning. Seeing Alicia depressed, Yusung mentions she looks down after encountering the labyrinth bandits. He asks her if she has never seen the true world without the title of a saintess. Alicia says that she can't believe the world is about to end, yet people are still fighting among themselves. Turning to Yusung, Alicia asks if he is used to such violence. Yusung says he isn't sure and that the world is the same everywhere. Alicia considers what Yusung said and then asks about his hometown.